You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday of getting back at you.
We're living in a very dangerous time right now, and liberalism has lost their cotton-picking mind.
The Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods.
Nobody ever said anything about resisting Obama. They went at him on legitimate arguments.
I really do believe that much of what you saw coming out of Trump's mouth was a play from Putin's playbook.
Welcome to the Abolitionists Roundtable, your all-access pass to exposing fake news, the resistance, and Barack Obama's shadow government undermining American progress. Be a part of the conversation at 734-822-1600. And now, your all-American hosts, Del Marsh and Phil Stargell.
Greetings. Thank you for joining the Abolitionist Roundtable. We are on the air, and we got so much information, folks. We're going to protect our heritage. I can tell you that right there. We're going to protect our heritage. But let me ask you a question. I was just talking to Milt last night, and I just ran this by Phil. I said, Phil, wait a minute. You notice that whenever you hear people talking about removing all these different Confederate, I call them Confederate displays and monuments and the heritage of America, good or bad. But I noticed that that even Republicans or people on the right side, they never call these people Democrats. These are Democrats, folks. Democrats. These are Democrats. These are people that represent the history and the legacy of the Democrat Party. So if we're going to remove some of these Confederate monuments, displays, and historical figures, then we also need to they need to scrap the Democrat Party. They need to scrap the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party also need to apologize for their history of oppression of all people, because it wasn't just blacks. You know, the Indians under Andrew Jackson too. They need to apologize for their oppression, and Nancy Pelosi need to apologize for the oppression of her party. And so, you know, again, when we hear them say this, yeah, go ahead.
And let's don't forget, Black Americans, or so-called African Americans, have to take some responsibility here too. They need to start holding the Democrats responsible, because what they've done is they created all of this. They created the Jim Crow laws, which is only civil rights for white people. And then they turn around and use civil rights to get black people to vote for them for the next 200 years. They have got to quit pointing their finger at Republicans and calling them racist, and the Republicans have got to stand up and act like they are not responsible. They are not responsible for all of the Jim Crow laws and all that. They are the ones that took black people out of slavery and forced Reconstruction on a bunch of people in the South that were a beaten nation. You got to look back at some of the stuff that went down after the Civil War and during Reconstruction, that the people in this country were not conditioned to accept equality by black people. And so that was forced on them. All of a sudden, you get to be from one situation, and then all of a sudden, that situation is equal to you or even better than you because of the civil rights laws.
I have no idea what you meant by that right there.
What I meant by that is that it was bad enough where Robert E. Lee said that had he known of the oppression of the Reconstruction period, he would have died at Appomattox with his sword in his hand instead of surrendering. That's how bad Reconstruction was, the shock of that. And so, you know, I'm not defending that kind of action, but what I am saying is we can't look from 100 years after, 150 years after the Civil War, and try to make the reason that things happen because of how we perceive it to be today. So, they talk about racism. They talk about hatred. A lot of this stuff they call hatred wasn't hatred. It was just the way things were. The world accepted slavery.
Well, let me just say this: Democrats are stuck in hate. They are the party of hate, and
as long as they can push it off on somebody else.
Man, I'm gonna tell you, if you are a Democrat, I mean, you would be stuck in, you know, that was something that happened 150 years ago. Man, it's despicable. Number one.
So that's why they hide the fact that all of this was perpetrated by the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
They want to tear down all of those things, but they've never changed their name. The Republicans were the Whig Party before they became Republicans.
Yeah.
And they renounced slavery. But you would think that
they not just renounced slavery. The Republican Party, the foundation of the party, was founded on that this is a party that's going to abolish slavery.
Yeah,
and so
that
was a part of their.
They did, and then you get
the
people.
Foundation of the party. Yeah.
You get people that say things like Lincoln didn't care for the. He didn't like the slaves. He just wanted to keep the Union together. He would have kept slaves in slavery if that was, well, yet and still he did it.
Well, no, he believed that
it
wasn't going to be a divided nation.
That's right.
He believed that we couldn't have the nation half free and half slavery. I'm sorry. So that argument.
Well, but see, the one statement that he made was that if there were a way to keep the Union together and keep slavery, he would have done it as long as he could.
Again, let me just say this right here.
And people take that to mean more than what he actually did.
That was his own personal comment, but that was not the founding principle of the party. So the party, the founding principle of the Republican Party, they had so whether or not that's what his mission was, that the undergirding of the Republican Party was to end that institution.
And he ended it because of the other founding documents. That was the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. The Democrats try to make it out like the Constitution, because there were some contradictions in what was stated and what was done, that those documents are bogus. They're not, they shouldn't apply today. That's why you get these idiots out there tearing down statues in the middle of the night with the help of the local government. And this is one of the other things that we got to look at today. When these local governments are defying federal law, that's the same thing the Confederacy was doing. They were saying, look, I don't care what the law says from Washington, D.C., we're going to have our own government. And this was the Democrat Party. This wasn't the generals.
Well, hold on. That's a good point. Prior to the Lincoln being elected, the Democrat Party, the Confederacy, they were operating under their own government. In those 15 states
that seceded,
they were already in secession.
That's
and
right.
They had their own laws, their own president. They had their own form of government in those 15 states.
Much the same thing as what's going on with sanctuary cities. And when you have something that happened in Charlottesville, who's getting the blame for this? President Trump is getting the blame. But guess what? The mayor and the safety directors of that city took the police out of the conflict and
it was a stand
and
down.
did not do their
Absolutely.
job.
Yeah, it was a stand
Did not
down.
allow the policemen to do their
And
job.
because who would let these two groups? Now, of course, we know there's a number of events that's going on this weekend, and so the propaganda media is going to come in with their spin. And if I could say myself, I hope that before the president come out that he consult with his communication department, because I want everybody on the same page when they come out, and condemn everybody. Absolutely. Matter of fact, if it wasn't for him, the fact would not be known about this. What is it called again? The alt left.
Alt left,
The,
alt right.
Well, no, it's an alt left group. The name is, I'm gonna have to look it up. But this group that's on the left.
Yeah.
That of course we see them at the
Financed by people like George Soros and
we seen them at the college when we see them at all your colleges, where these are the guys that dress up in all black, burn buildings, beat up people, and so this is
and stop people from speaking. Stop people
and
from
stop people from
freely
using their
having,
constitutional.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly
and so,
right. And these people are being praised by people like Nancy Pelosi, the head of the
Well, she might
the
not
Democrat
praise him, but I
Party.
must say this right here that she don't call them out. So
No.
that is
she
a
giving
way
praise to them
of,
and saying
giving
that they are the peaceful one. No, they are not peaceful people. But again, we can't have chaos and we can't have anarchy. So the police should do their job. Instead of that, they're in the middle of the night when nobody's watching, going down, tearing down statues and monuments. And here's the thing. When somebody from the supposed opposite of these left people, these left socialist communist people, the people that oppose these people, supposedly, people like Charles Krauthammer, who's supposed to be a conservative, he goes and says things like, these people should be allowed to take these statues down if there is a consensus, and that's what the people in the city want. Well, nobody asked a lot of those people that were out there on the other side whether or not they wanted those statues taken down or whether or not they had a say. See, they always talk about the Democrat process, but that's not what's happening. These people are fascists. They say they're anti-fascist, but they are. They are the people that take the government and make the government make all of the decisions and take the people out of the process. And that's what I'm against, and that's what I'm angry about, and that's why I wrote in my article in the Current that the legislature should have intervened a long time ago. These people have taken over the judicial area, the investigative area of the government, and they have all come down on the president, and what they're about is taking this president out one way or another.
Well, that's without being seen at all. Okay, so here we're gonna get back to our agenda. We kind of had a little ramble there. It sounded like Phil had something that on his heart there, and but here I'm gonna just say that if we could name today's show, when you go to our website artofmichigan.com, you click on our YouTube. You'll see that this show is going to be "Why Are the Confederates Not Called Democrats?" And so, that was something I pondered last night. I noticed that nobody called these historic figures. They're still historic figures to me, good or bad. Still historic figures to me. I wasn't born in the South, but I have roots in the South, man, and I'm gonna tell you, especially Louisiana, and I love the state of Louisiana, And so, you know, some of these things I seen, man, but I still love that South. And it's just something about the South. So, but anyway, I see that my subtopic is the Democrats see this as a chance to erase their history. Don't you see that the Democrats see this as a chance to erase their history, folks? Because here, I'm gonna go back for a minute, and then we're gonna get to some of our calls. We just found out one of the things. I just had to report this. We got to get this out, and then we're gonna kind of get back into on track because we got a lot that we want to try to say within this. We have about 20 minutes, and so you know what? Let me just go to our call first. But I want to read a headline, and then when I come back from the call, we're gonna go ahead and finish this up. And this is a report, and this is reported by Breitbart News, and it says report: Charlotte racist leader was former Occupy activist, Obama supporter. So, and this information came from the Southern Poverty Law Center. So that means that the Southern Poverty Law Center had seen this young man, this Kessler guy, and they wrote about you know, he was somebody that was a part of prior to him becoming this so-called supreme leader or leader of the alt-right. He was a part of the Occupy Wall Street, and he was a stark supporter of who? Barack Hussein Obama. So we're going to get to that, and we're going to read a little bit of that, and we're gonna laugh about that a little bit. We're going to go to a break, and then we're going to get into this because we got a lot to talk about. So let's go to Gary. Good morning, Gary from Hazel Park.
Hey, Phil. Hey, Dale. Hey,
Good morning.
You said something a couple of minutes ago that's real important, that we can't compare today's mentality with what happened 150 years ago.
That's right.
It's not right. Because if you think about it, up until 1776, nobody was free. Everybody was subject to the king. Everybody had to follow his edicts. Everybody had to follow the law of the king. And
that's
so
right. There was the king that instituted that. You know. Number one, America never had slavery, and I know that. You know that.
You're
and
right.
It was not in the slavery that was instituted here. It was instituted by the king of the crown of the king, because
right.
America was colonized by who? By England. Go
Right.
ahead. I'm sorry.
That's fine. And it only took 2 generations to rectify the mistake of the Constitution that made black folks only like 2/3 or whatever it was. 2 generations to fix the mistake. That's pretty fast in my book, when it took thousands of years to get freedom in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say this right here. I know this might not be popular for some people. This is just my sentiment. For some people, slavery was a terrible thing. And so when I look back, I look at it from a different perspective. I might not like the institution, but if I don't know if my ancestors was or was not, I'm not going to debate that. I'm not even going to look it up and even trying to find out. I can care less. But if I had an opportunity, and I know it was some hardship, to stay, and I can look back at some of these African nations. Now we know we know some of the African nations that where this slave trade took place, where black slave-owned Muslims brought blacks and they traded them for whatever they could get from the white man. So it was an exchange that went on. But even if I got on that ship, it was still better than being in that African, though whatever that African nation was that I would be in today. Today, so it might have been a hardship for a while, but man, at the end of the day, whoever my ancestor was, or whoever somebody's ancestor was, they brought you to a place that that you could have never ever thought of. And so I believe at the end of the day, what the enemy meant for bad, God turned around for good. And so
Right,
that's
and-
where I'm going to end it at right there. And I'm going to let you have the last final words.
And I've seen some empirical evidence that the black family was in much better shape back in the day because they were spiritually more together, the families together, and the father stayed with the family more often than not because the slave owners understood that the family worked better together.
Yeah.
Well, one thing about it is that a lot of people don't realize that slavery is not just the bondage of chains.
Yeah.
It is the bondage of the mind. And the Democrats have practiced enslaving the minds of not only blacks, but every ethnic group they can get on because it is about power, and the Democrats have never wanted to give up
Yeah.
power. They
No.
do not share power,
Yeah.
and when people vote for exclusively for Democrats, they think that they're going to share in the power. The Democrats don't share power; they wield power.
Now, that's a good point. And you know why you can make a statement like that? Nancy Pelosi would not give up that power.
That's right.
You know that. You notice
That's right.
that no matter how many different ways that she is not giving up that power. They even people in the party have asked for her to step down. That it's time for younger and new
Yeah.
leadership, and
No.
she still won't step
No,
down.
she's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. See
All
you
right.
on
Thanks for your
Woodward
call.
with Senator Kolpeck.
Oh, Senator Kopak is doing what?
He's on Woodward Avenue today.
Oh, okay. Oh, he's going to be at the Woodward Dream Cruise today.
That's right.
Okay, great.
So,
All
if
right,
you're up there,
folks.
stop
Well,
by.
you heard
11 and a half mile.
at 11 and a half mile in Woodward. All right.
That's right.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thanks.
Gary.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. If you wanna see Patrick Kopak, I didn't know today is going to be at the Woodward Dream Cruise right at 11 mile in Woodward there. So go over there, show your support for him. If he have some flyers or something he want to put out. Wouldn't Patrick be just a great first family? Be a wonderful first family and an awesome governor. So that we know somebody with a real moral character, somebody with real character, somebody with a real Christian foundation that we can trust, and somebody that we can wrap our love around too. So yeah, I support that family, and I want to wish them the absolute best. But here, let's go back for a minute. I think what we got. Do we have a couple of minutes there left, Derek? 1 or 2 minutes left. So we got about 1 or 2 minutes left, Phil. So I want to go back for a minute, Phil, to this the Southern Poverty Law Center report that Jason Kessler, the organizer of last weekend's white supremacy rally in Charlotte, Virginia, is rumored to be. Now, this is from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Who is that? That's a left-wing group. Wouldn't you say that the Southern Poverty Law Center? And man, because the Southern Poverty Law Center, even if you're on the right, and I mean, they can give you a bad name, and
They've done it. They
give conservative groups a bad
oh man,
bad name, and a bad name quick. So, but anyway, and so they're reporting on this right here about him, that he was rumored to be a former Occupy Wall Street activist and supporter of who? Mr. Barack Obama, the left-wing SPLP, of course, LC, which is Southern Poverty Law Center, is often partisan and overzealous in targeting groups, lumping legitimate conservative organizations together with actual extreme. Yes, go ahead.
One question: what is that Southern poverty?
The Southern Poverty Law Center.
Poverty.
Yeah.
I heard a guy say last night that this group has quite a bit of investments offshore. So how are they in poverty? How would they tie themselves with poverty?
When they got a lot of money.
Yes, and they got money offshore,
and they got money offshore. Well, they don't want the government to tax it.
No,
they don't want to be in poverty.
But they always want to play on that that the Republicans are the rich and
Hey, hold on just a minute. Give us a call, 734-822-1600. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
You're listening to the Abolitionists Roundtable with your hosts, Del and Phil. They're exposing the left's underground resistance while leading the charge in the fight for liberty. Join the conversation at 734-822-1600.
Hello, I'm Milt, and this is Logically Speaking Uncensored. We, the people, are the government. Daily, Americans argue and complain about what the encompassing entity called the government is or is not doing. However, if you ask people to put a face on the so-called government, very few will have the correct answer. However, the answer resides in the first three words of the United States Constitution: we, the people. The three words, we the people, emphasize and prioritize people as the essential fiduciaries of governance and controllers of elected officials and politicians, with the authority to command what they can do and cannot do. But the felonious derelictions of we the people to exercise our powers has allowed elected officials and politicians to fill the void by reversing the order of command and becoming miniature dictators who negate the will of the people by dictating laws and passing legislation against the will of the people. As the nation struggled to survive an onslaught of adversities, cultural rot, and anti-Americanism, the blame game of who should solve America's problems has been relegated to big brothers and sisters known as the government. But in 1863, on a Thursday afternoon in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, President Abraham Lincoln gave his historic Gettysburg Address, wherein he stated the importance of we the people when he declared America as the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and it shall not perish from the earth. The esteemed phrase, we the people, is reserved exclusively for legal Americans who respect the flag and pledge of allegiance to the Judeo-Christian principles which form the fundamental foundation upon which America was founded. And if we do not want it to perish from the earth, we must be willing to fight for the values that have made it a shining light, committed to being one nation under God. Therefore, giving elected officials and politicians ruling powers over the people is tantamount to giving a tenant ruling powers over their landlord. If we the people had exercised control over the scandalous elected officials and politicians who rule us today, our borders would be secure, penalties against illegal immigration in sanctuary cities would be enforced, the military would be stronger, our schools would not be liberal indoctrination centers promoting antisocial behavior and fake gender normalcy. Anti-American, antisocial behaviors would be curtailed, abortions would be diminished, Obamacare would be repealed, and patriotism would dominate. When you analyze the cultural and political dilemmas engulfing the United States, they can be traced to we the people who have forsaken our fiduciary obligations and allowed the elected officials and politicians, contrary to the Constitution, to become miniature dictators who dictate what is acceptable and what we can and cannot do. It is time we the people resume our constitutional authorities and powers over the elected officials and politicians and reverse the felonious corruption of the Constitution by rededicating America as the government of, by, and for the people. I am Milt, Logically Speaking Uncensored, saying, think about it.
All right, thank you, Milt, for sitting that down. Milt, that's Milt Harris right there from Logically Speaking Uncensored. Here we're gonna get back to a little bit of our agenda, and then I want to get back to this, but then I want to just make it I just found this funny, and I want to play a little bit a news little soundbite from CBS News because I thought this was the funniest thing ever. Pastor wants president's name removed from Washington Jackson Park over ties of slavery. But the funniest, wait till you hear it. I'm just going to leave that little tidbit there, and then we're going to play a soundbite from that right there. But here, let's go back for a minute, and we were talking about what the Southern Poverty Law Center. They found out about Mr. Jason Kessler, and this was picked up by Breitbart. And Breitbart is not taking credit for this themselves, but they absolutely are making sure that the left-wing group, the Southern Poverty Law Center, even though Phil found that to be funny that they got money, billions and millions, maybe not billions, but millions of dollars offshore. And they want to make sure that they have the Southern Poverty
Law Center.
Law Center there. And so, again, we were just, we did look at that the Southern Poverty Law Center sometime were overzealous in targeting hate groups, lumping legitimate conservative organizations together with extreme groups, with extremists. Therefore, is identifying Kessler left-wing roots is significant. So, with them identifying Kessler's left-wing roots prior to him changing over, so before he switched over to the right, which we don't really know he's on the right, because this is a white nationalist group. White nationalist really means nationalist socialists. These are really socialist type of groups.
Well, let's look. We've talked about what we should call ourselves as conservatives.
Yeah.
Because like when we call ourselves black conservatives, we got people like Lindsey Graham saying he's a conservative.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got people like John McCain, where the media lists him as a conservative.
Oh my God! Let me tell you something. This is the funniest thing ever. I think we might have read it a couple of weeks ago. The news media reported Morning Joe as a conservative TV host.
all because he was a Republican congressman.
That's funny.
That should have been elected as a Democrat.
Yeah.
And when people found out what he actually stood for, then they made it known to him, you better not bring that here with this next election here, because we're not voting for you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we find ourselves. This is why I say that you and I know exactly about that, because we see it when people say the right thing here and the right thing there. All you have to do is just carry that forward until you get to the point where you have to prove it, like in the election, like getting rid of Obamacare. And you see,
John McCain,
you see where John McCain
took a different position.
You see where
and
Murkowski,
on it,
and you remember Murkowski was primary out, and she got the Democrats to take up her slack on the other end. You understand? In order to get back in office. That shows you that what we are fighting is we're fighting insurgents in the Republican Party and in the government itself. That's why they call it the deep state.
That's right. All right, so here, let me just finish this up, and we're going to go ahead and move on. Oh, wow. Matter of fact, I got to get a little light here.
And last thing, that's why I'm questioning just exactly what I should call myself outwardly, because I don't want to be associated as a conservative with people
let me
like
just say this right here.
Lindsey
Today,
Graham
being
and John McCain.
just calling yourself a nationalist now is something that's meaning that I'm just somebody that love my country.
Yeah.
And today now that has become something that people want to run away from, just being a nationalist.
Bannon called himself an economic nationalist.
Yeah.
He said, I'm an economic nationalist. I would like to know how he got to be a racist, and he works for Breitbart, who's Jewish.
Yeah.
I mean, these people are on the left are they absolutely can have absolutely no good thing to say about anybody.
Well, they don't supposed to.
Yeah, our people
take you out.
The supposed Republicans say better things about Democrats than they do about their own Republicans. And that's why, like I said, another reason why, and I can point out many, many times where people have said good things about people like Comey and Mueller and these people, and they have absolutely nothing good to say about Trump or people that are in his administration. This is why we have such a conflict. Because one thing, people like Trump can't defend themselves because they have to have some kind of coalition that will stand behind that defense. That's why when people say Trump ought to stop tweeting, well, where is he going to go for somebody to defend him? The media won't do it. The Republican Congress certainly won't do it. Who's supposed to do it? The people have to stand up and get behind him.
I can believe he can outreach to them a little bit more. I don't want him to isolate himself so much either. And I see this divide getting bigger and bigger. It is his responsibility to move that divide. For him to start, if they don't do it, you got to be the bigger person. You got to start outreaching to them.
Don't you think that he reached out to them when he told him?
You got to continue to.
Yeah, but he told them. He told them, whatever you sign up here, I'll sign it. I'm with you.
And I'm with you on that. So he got to make sure his representation is down there, working with them.
But what about when Obama was in there and everything that they sent him, they knew he was going to veto it. So obviously that's what they wanted. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's frustration with people like the Tea Party people. One of the things that you've seen is that there were some demonstrations where Tea Party people went out and were and were overtaken by a bunch of thugs. It wasn't violent. It just so happened that it wasn't violent. But who wants to be called a racist because they are out telling people what they think about a certain situation? Now let's go back just a little bit. When they opposed Obamacare, it was from the beginning, and it was because
we get a little off track.
I just want to make one quick point. The opposition to Obama wasn't because of the merits of Obamacare. It was because it was Obama's signature legislation, and the people that opposed it had to be racist because there was no other reason for it. And from that point on, it's all opposition to Obamacare has always been because people were racist, not because the Obamacare was the worst legislation ever put before the people. So that's just one of the things. But everything is about race, and everything isn't about race. It's about economics. It's about other things.
Yeah, and that's why, just because somebody throw that acronym out there, you don't always have to accept it, and you can reject that. And so we're going to fight back. We got to fight back against that bigotry of people thinking that they can automatically do that. But hold on just for a minute, Phil. Derek, let's go to a break, and then when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation. And if you'd like to be a part of the conversation, give us a call at 734-822-1600. We'll see you on the other side of the break.
And now back to the Abolitionists Roundtable. Patriotic Black American conservatism, leading the charge and advancing the 4%. Back to your hosts, Del and Phil.
All right, folks, thank you for, all right, great. Thank you for joining the Abolitionist Roundtable with your host, Dale and Phil. Yeah, folks, let me just say this. It sounds like Phil has a lot that he, on his heart. We'll talk about this Breitbart story later, but I just want to read a couple of headlines here. We see that Nancy Pelosi, the House Majority Leader, is calling for removal of Confederate Democrat statute. It don't say Democrats, but it should say Confederate removal of Confederate Democrat statues from Capitol. So why would the Capitol is a place for history, good or bad? Good or bad. So why would a sitting congresswoman call for the removal of historic figures from the Capitol, good or bad? They are part of the Democrat history, but then she won't embrace this history either.
Yeah. I think that the more that they throw out, the more that they can get opposition to what they're throwing out. In other words, let's go over here and pretty soon they're going to get to the point where people will say, well, doggone, what are we going to do? Are we going to throw out, the last 10 presidents? Because, they were all basically Democrats. Bill Clinton, let's get him. But you do notice that they rejected Hillary Clinton because of the policies of her husband. You remember?
Absolutely.
The 3 strikes and you're outlaw.
That 3-strike man was
you
big.
Remember?
And a lot of people are in prison right now because of that.
And I've been saying that at some point, black people are going to wake up and realize that they have been the victim of a genocide. Yeah. And when they realize that, who are they going to blame? Are they going to blame the Republicans? Because the Republicans have been trying to
liberals
to stop this abortion thing for years.
The liberals that lead them by pitchfork.
I can see the day when they would take Martin Luther King's statue down because he was pro-life.
Well, not just that. Somebody going to say that he was pro-life, and it was rumored that he had an affair with the woman outside of his marriage too. So, we can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
So it can be all kind of statues removed in.
Yeah.
And so, do they really want to? We really opened up a Pandora box. Here, I'm going to just read one. This is the one I want to go to, Phil, for a minute, where this pastor from Chicago, if you don't mind, dear, get that sound bite together. I want to play this sound bite because I found this hilarious. And so we're gonna listen to this real quick about this pastor, want Washington removed in Jackson from the park because of their ties to slavery, and then we're gonna talk about it. Thanks, dear.
Virginia is prompting some to take a second look at the names of parks across the nation. A pastor in Chicago is calling for changes here. CBS 2's Susanna Song joins us live from Washington Park with more. Hi, Susanna.
Hey, good morning, Aaron. Washington Park is named after our first president, and a statue of him on a horse stands prominently here at this park for all to see. But one pastor, as you mentioned, said it is offensive because Washington owned slaves. Bishop James Dukes is calling for the mayor and Chicago Park District to remove the name of not only George Washington, but also Jackson Park, named after President Andrew Jackson. Jackson, as you know, was the 7th president of the United States. Dukes says they should not be held to such esteem and considered heroes when they participated in the slave trade. He says the changes could be as simple as naming the parks after African American heroes like Harold Washington, Jesse Jackson, and Michael Jackson. He explains why the statue should come down.
It represents, on one hand, a hero to some, a forefather, a revolutionary. But then for us of African American descent, it represents a person who owned 317 slaves.
Do you think the average person, though, who looks at this statue and when they're in Washington Park, thinks of slavery with President Washington?
Because that's the lack of information and knowledge, and people said we could use this statue as a way of teaching history, but all our history books never accept the president as that.
Obviously, that is his point of view, but he did say other African-American leaders in Chicago share his same views. Now, we did reach out to the mayor's office and the Chicago Park District. The district says they have general guidelines. Essentially, he would have to reach out to the superintendent, and even before the board approves the renaming, the public can weigh in and share their input for 45 days.
All right, thank
Reporting
you,
live
Karen.
in Washington Park.
And that's a lie. The public, talking about the public can weigh in and share their opinions.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what their opinion is. They made their mind up.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, they still got to go through the city council too. And
Well,
they'll take
it's
a
the same
vote
thing
on it.
about sanctuary cities,
Yeah.
right? They never really consulted people about whether or not they want to make a place a sanctuary city, but it's
Well, they'll send the goons in there to the to the city meetings and make sure that they stand for it. They might not be in opposition of it. So they'll make sure that they send their people in there to disrupt that meeting and get their vote.
Yeah, and then they'll do what they've been doing in Baltimore, go in the middle of the night and tear them down.
And that's what, and this is where I want this, because we need to come up with, okay, some areas they can remove them if that's what they choose to do. But I want there to, we need to create laws that if you touch anything, it's going to be, it's going to be a federal offense.
Well, they ought to
You
enforce
can't
the
touch
law.
them. I want them to enforce the law. You cannot touch those statues at all.
No more
And,
Charlottesville's where they take the police and tell them to stand down, and then blame everybody else for the violence that happened.
All right, folks, I want to thank you very much for listening to the Abolitionist Roundtable. Go to our website, artofmichigan.com. We can use your support, and we'll see you next week.
The Abolitionist Roundtable invites the Wham Talk 1600 listeners to continue the roundtable discussions by mailing correspondence to Art of Michigan, Post Office Box 135, Garden City, Michigan 48135.
Or follow Phil and Del at artofmichigan.com. You can also send emails to artofmichigan@hotmail.com. And most of all, continue to listen every Saturday and tell a friend.